The discussion, Senator, before we proceed, any comments on that?
Yes, I would like to comment that freedom of expression and the freedom of assembly is not enjoyed at the expense of, at the pleasure of the police. But I would say that one thing that I find positive in this particular story is that somebody has been summoned. I don't know if a warrant has been issued, because the only person who can issue the warrant will be a magistrate. I don't know if one has been issued, but if it's a police summon, I would ask Mr. Malala to honorably present himself to the police and record whatever statement I want him to record, and then that should be. At least if they move away from the drama of trying to chase people around, to engage like that in a military, in a military theater of war, would help. So the positive thing is that you have said, okay, come, let Malala present himself, and then if they take him to court, we deal with it. Because I don't personally, where I am sitting, I don't see anything bad that Mr. Malala did by having that rally that he had.
Fair enough. Senator, let's get back.
The other day, the president disrupted. If you remember in Nairobi here, when he went around with pickpockets, when he was leading a gang of pickpockets who were stealing from people, was it not President Ruto disrupting? What he did worse than disrupt. He should have been arrested for carrying goons through the streets of Nairobi and the estates. Why wasn't Ruto summoned for parading goons in the street, in the city of Nairobi? So Malala just did a small thing in Kakagwad. What Ruto did was much bigger. So if it's good for the Ganda, for the goose, it should be good for the Ganda.
Fair enough, Senator. Let's get back to our discussion. You want to, I suppose, be the 6th president of the Republic of Kenya. 4 of your predecessors each at least had more than at least 1 term, 2 terms. What makes and gives confidence to people like you that the 5th can be a 1-term president?
Well, even those 2 terms, I would really want to begin counting under this new constitution.
Yes.
Even those 2 terms, you remember the first one, the second term of Uhuru, got disbanded. I think it got disrupted to some extent by the Supreme Court judgment that nullified the results, which means that sometimes underhand deals are involved. My confidence is that if we are able to move these elections, to hold these elections according to the Constitution, and we terminate the presidential election at the constituency, there's no way Mr. Ruto can win. He can only win if he gets his way to Bomas.
And are you doubting the possibility of the election being held as per the Constitution?
It has never been. The presidential election has never been. Because, you know, we have got 2 distinct elections in Kenya. You have got the constituency, the 5 elections. If it's in the ward, there's the one in the constituency. Then there are the 3 in the counties. That's the women rep, the governor, and the senator. The 3. Those ones are won by a simple majority. So those ones, even you can have somebody with 100 votes, and the person with 101 votes will win. The presidential election we have is not the same. It's different. You require, first of all, to win 50% plus 1 of the vote. So even if you are 100 candidates, one of you must be powerful enough to acquire more than 1/2 of the votes. Otherwise, there will be a runoff between the first and the second. So the number of candidates is irrelevant. And now, to achieve that, you require to have this election also acquiring a certain threshold, which is at least a majority in 24 constituencies, in 24 counties. So with that kind of election, then you find that the requirement in that election is that because every vote counts, and you need 50%, that's the block, plus 1 vote.
Yes.
And any vote counts. So the election is designed in such a way that the votes are counted at the polling station, and the results are announced. Then the returning officer at the constituency level collects and announces the results by the constituency. So for the presidential, we need 290 results certificates announced at the constituency. Then from there, there is nothing like a presidential returning officer, which they have created in the regulations. That's unconstitutional. There's only a returning officer at the constituency who conducts the election of president in the constituency, because the law says that where more than one candidate is cleared for president, to vie for president, an election shall take place in each constituency. So the returning officer in the constituency is the presidential returning officer. And that's why he announces the results. After that, what is left is just a declaration, which even you in the media should be able to declare upon receiving all the 290 results. You do your maths and say this thing has either gone, it has not gone, there will be a runoff or something like that.
And Senator, you have quite elaborated the process, which is constitutionally provided. Yeah. Is that the process that you think its implementation to a free and fair election is often faulty?
Yes, what happens is that after that, when the mistake that we have done is that after the elections from the polling stations, somehow the regulations provide that those ballots, you have heard of transmission and whatever. In the Act and in the regulations, they have provided that the results of the polling stations are brought to bombers to be retallied.
Yes.
And that's why the problem comes. When they begin at those funny tallying, and then they come up with the results that are not understood, they switch off TVs, they do whatever, they bring in choirs from Tanzania to sing. When what should happen is, the media should have called the election for us on that day. Then we wait for a formality that can even be delivered by email by the chairman of the IEBC.
Fair enough, Senator. As we talk of the election and the possibility of the outcomes, there is a constitutionally mandated body to oversee this election, which is IEBC. Yeah. There were commissioners whose names were nominated to Parliament. There is a court process that has since stopped. As a prospective presidential candidate, do you have faith in the process that led to the nomination of those members?
I don't have any faith in that, because the whole thing is conceptually flawed. Even with the best intentions, you can never get an independent commission out of an ad hoc committee. You even saw people fighting, going to court to say they should be in the ad hoc committee, which means there's something in the ad hoc committee people are going for. You are giving people a chance of about 6 months to make a decision that's a matter of life and death for a country in terms of the elections in this country. And these are very high stakes nomination of a commission. So a lot of illicit money gets to play, a lot of vested interests come into play, and that's why even somebody went to court until the Court of Appeal, fighting that he must be on the selection panel. The ideal thing to do is this. We have got countries that have constitutions similar to what ours requires, South Africa and Brazil. Look at how they constitute their commissions. The commission is not constituted by an ad hoc committee. It's constituted by constitutional office holders. So like we could be giving a responsibility to the judge, or to the judiciary, to other institutional officers, whatever, to nominate people who can sit on the electoral body. So that if these people mess, we still know who to blame. Today, if I ask you, do you remember the panel that selected Cherera or Chebukati? We don't, because they bear no responsibility. And that's why all our commissions have failed, because we use ad hoc committees to do the impossible, to appoint a permanent commission. So if we want to cure that, we must go and cure that. Or we do what the old democracies do, whereby they say political parties will each nominate a player to the electoral body. It happened in Kenya once under the IPPG. That's when we had the successful 205 referendum, and we had the successful 202 elections. The commission that handled that was by political parties, and we had no dispute.
Senator, of course there is mutual mistrust of whether...
Yeah, well, you give the crooks. Let them check each other.
There is mutual mistrust from even parties who participate in the election as to whether an independent, fair, free, verifiable election outcome can be projected in Kenya. But What does IEBC, in your view, needs to be given to hold a free election?
First of all, the standard of elections in Kenya is no longer free and fair. The standard is tamper-proof. If you read Article 86, Article 81, it's clearly tamper-proof, not free and fair. Because we talk of accurate, verifiable.
But for it to be
accurate and verifiable, it means that it's a tamper-proof election where we cannot even estimate. It's not a question of being fair. It's a question of doing something that is mathematically accurate.
But so, isn't the fairness on the process that leads to the
what I'm trying to get at is this, that the election anticipated under our constitution is a digital election where human intervention is minimal. The way it happens in Brazil, the way it happens in India, with those billions, and they do it in a matter of hours, and they're done. So we need a digital election in Kenya. That's why when our Supreme Court, for a presidential dispute, they're only given 14 days to make a determination because
fair enough.
It's supposed to be a digital election, but we are stuck on paper, on paper ballots alone. If we want that through, then we shall be able to achieve a tamper-proof election that once it is done, anybody with a dispute, we just go to the record and you'll see the record and we'll tell you this thing was cooked.
Fair enough, Senator, and because of the interest of time, perhaps two last questions. One, you are among people who want to replace the president, vie for the presidency. You will tell us whether that is true or I'm asserting my own judgments on that. But there is the question of a divided opposition, each party wanting to field its candidate. Some of the names are Kalonzo Musyoka, Rigathi Gachagua, Martha Karua. Why not form a formidable opposition?
And that's why, first of all, I want to answer the first question. Yes, I'm vying for the presidency. I have an exploratory committee which is going out. And so far, they've done 31 counties. I'm left with 16. And the verdict is virtually that the preliminary report is that I should vie because the ground is supportive. Now, apart from that, the question of uniting the opposition is being cast within the mold of what happened under the old constitution when Moi, I think, had about 25 or 30% of the ballot and he won. In the current constitution, you must have 50 plus 1, 50% plus one.
Yes.
So it doesn't matter how many candidates there are. Two, I want to engage at the level of policy.
Yes.
And the only person I've seen trying to come up with something close to policy is Rigiji when he talks of one term.
Yes.
But now one term also ends with one term. After one term, what happens? So I would like to see not necessarily a convergence of faces, but a convergence of a clear policy framework for moving this country.
And if there is a need for convergence of those faces, are you willing to back any of those candidates?
If somebody comes up with a position like the one I have, for example, I'm saying the budget must become the only tool for distributing any resources in the country, not the president. So that when you become an MP, you have got the power to put the agenda of your people on the budget. If somebody is saying that, I agree. If somebody is saying that we must separate the treasury from the president so that the president does not run the treasury like his pocket money, so that where the president is, everybody is begging for this, begging for that, I will agree. If we say that we must have elections that terminate at the constituency, I will agree. If we say that we must have a sovereign wealth fund established so that we can save money for future generations, I will agree. But if somebody just says that come together so that we just simply kick Ruto out so that we can replace Ruto with another Ruto, I'm not with them.
And finally, Senator, in 1 or 2 seconds, what are the mathematical chances, in your view, of Okiya the 6th?
I think where things stand is very, very real. And I'm seeing I'm looking at 70%.
Way above the required 50%
70%,
plus 1.
Yeah, I'm looking at 70%.
And where does that confidence come from?
What I'm doing on the ground.
Which is?
I have a team going around. I've got, in fact, we are releasing something called Identity very soon. This is by the Gen Z to go and spread the message, do political education. We have people who are doing town halls and stuff, and the need is positive. And people have understood that the economy, and nothing else but the economy, is the primary issue we must address in the country today. And so I've got full confidence. When shove comes to push, I will emerge victorious.
We are talking of an election, Senator, 807 days ahead. Of course, we will host you many times in the future. Thank you for your time tonight.
Welcome.
On TV 47. Remember,
Thank you for the chance.
Discussion, send us a message on 22047. Let's get to the world of business.